I'm Caleb Schenk. I'm here at the Agricultural and Industrial Museum to give you a quick tour of our transportation gallery. We're going to look at some of York's only remaining cars. The auto industry started in America in the early 1890s. It came to York in around 1903 and remained relevant for around 15 years. During that period, it was one of our major industries. We have a fantastic example of a York car manufacturing company here. It's the Hartcraft delivery truck. It was built in 1911. The Hartcraft company operated in York until around 1913. Now this particular car is, first of all, the only one of its kind in existence, and second of all, fairly renowned for its restoration there. We're going to move on over here to another one of our own ones. This is our earliest model of car. It's what's known as a transitional car because it was actually made out of a wagon during the transition from horsepower to autos. This is our Mayflower station wagon. Now when we say it's a station wagon, we really mean it is a wagon that would transport people and their luggage to and from the station, train station. If you look in the back, it has a storage area which could also have benches put in to carry passengers. One of the coolest things about this is you can look here and see the steering shaft, and then down underneath, and you can see that it has the shocks of a wagon, and underneath you can see the chain that operated it. This was not run with a typical engine. This is one of our earliest engine prototypes. Another cool thing about it is that this was basically a homemade car. Not necessarily made in a home, but made out of parts, not manufactured by a company. Now this was, of course, manufactured by a company. This is the Sphinx touring car. This was built in 1915, so this is one of the later cars built in York. It's another only one of its type. This looks like an incredibly fancy car, but this was built as a fairly affordable option, only $700. The trade-off of that is that it didn't have quite the quality of the cars that were manufactured by teams in small workshops, and it wasn't built with quite the speed and economy of a assembly line car, such as the Fords. The Sphinx company went out of business shortly after this one was made, and as the Ford company and the assembly line production of cars gained popularity, the industry kind of lost its foothold in York. I'll point out one small flaw of this. The gas tank here is in the front of the car. Not necessarily the safest option. But it did keep it close to the engine, I guess. Now, one of the most well-known and prolific companies in York was, of course, the Pullman Company. And we have a small group of Pullman cars here. The Pullman Company operated until around 1917 and was one of the first companies to open in York. We have a photo of their first model. Unfortunately, as far as we know, there are no existing six-wheelers left. You'll notice this is a six-wheeler. It's pretty obvious how it got its name. The flaw was that it was not a front-wheel drive. It was not a rear-wheel drive. It was a middle-wheel drive, which meant that if it went over a bump or something and these middle wheels were off the ground, you were stuck. You weren't going anywhere. It also made turning extremely difficult. You might think it would go wide. It actually would undershoot the turns and turn too sharply. It'd end up in a ditch or a median. Unfazed, Pullman kept trying. The next model, the York, called the York, was far more successful. And over here, we have what is maybe one of their most successful cars. This is the Model C. And you can see how it's really a descendant of the six-wheel. A family car, lots of seating, lots of room, and a luxury car. And as you come around the side, you can see much more complex engine than in the Mayflower, of course. Oh. The last car I want to talk to you about today is one of my personal favorites, and that is our Opera Coupe. As many of you will probably know, driving was not seen as a womanly activity. It was generally reserved for men. The opera car was built around the women's suffrage movement around the same time period, and it was marketed towards women. It's one of the only cars of that period that was. We look at it and it looks a little old and drab, I guess you would say. In its heyday, this was, I think described as the Cinderella carriage. It was fancy, it was nice. Shame you can't see it now. It actually had curtains at one point hanging in it. Some small things show that the car was made for women, designed by men. Now, as we look in, ignore the vacuum cleaner. We're in the middle of restoring the car and getting it ready to move over to the steam plant when we reopen there. But you can peek on in. Oh, and I see it's a light here. The vacuum is out of the car. The Opera Coupe had a driver's seat, but no passenger seat. I mean, if you take a moment to think about why, well, who would a woman be driving with? If her husband was with her, he'd be the one driving and they'd be taking his car. She certainly wouldn't be driving with another man, and if she was driving with her kids, they'd be sitting in the back. And what else would a woman have to do, right? Old ways of thinking. It did have some features, though, that were pretty revolutionary for its time. It had a push-button start down here at the bottom instead of the crank. If you've ever seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, you didn't have to get out in the front. It had windshield wipers. And it had this overhang to keep the rain off and allow a safer and clearer drive. One thing that I like to point out, many of the safety features around cars, the windshield wipers, the windshield itself, turn signals, and even the white lines in the middle of the road, all invented by women. So one thing I like to think of is men generally picked the features and championed the features that would make it go fast, be more powerful, go stronger. And women were the ones going, maybe we should not splatter on the highway. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed our tour. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments or ask them now. And I hope that you'll come and visit us in person when we reopen on April 1st.